Hi, everybody. Formally welcome to our show number 239 on the 22nd of November, 2019. We're live, of course, at the Beach Street Yacht Club here in San Francisco at what, Julia, is the start of Thanksgiving week, is it not? Well, where's your mic? Sorry, there you go.
Yeah, everybody's on the road already.
Yeah, and you said something yesterday that I found interesting. The big travel day for our 4-day Thanksgiving weekend, which is next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, is today, not next Wednesday.
No.
So I guess people are taking the whole week off. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
And you're drinking a little iced coffee in honor of all our friends down in Australia?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, you want to say your normal pre-show thingy?
We thank you for watching and getting better and better at liking us and sharing us.
And subscribing if they haven't.
Subscribing.
Pretty much everyone on here already has done so. And if you haven't otherwise become a patron, please consider going over to sailingillustrated.com, our main website, and becoming a patron via Patreon and giving us $1 or $10 or more per month. Some people give us quite a bit of money, which we deeply appreciate, and it keeps the studio lights on.
It does. And
the rent paid and so on. Okay, thank you all. I am, of course, your host, Tom Ehman, and Julia, our coordinating producer, is with us today. And just to start things off here, we will be on the air next week at our normal times, both on Tuesday and Friday. Normal schedule next week, despite it being Thanksgiving here. We will carry on as if it were a normal week for us, because it is, and because a lot of you around the world are not celebrating our American Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And those of you that are, we hope you have a terrific week. I want to start with a Bravo Zulu, and this that's actually the son and daughter of an Australian Fozy. Have a look at this video, and then we'll talk a little bit about the kids and the parents, the father, anyway. Well, you saw the kids on there, Ruben, and what was his sister's name? I'm sorry, I missed her name going through that video. But obviously, the son and daughter of Mitch Booth of Australia, the Olympic medalist in the gold medalist in the tornado class, famously good sailor. Congrats to them. Mitch is often on here watching, Australian gold medalist, multi-medalist, I think, in the tornado class, and a great sailor. Congrats to him and, well, to his kids and to, I'm sure, the proud parents. This was sent by Bill Wingrove, who's on a plane and hoping to watch this, but this was, I thought, a terrific video from Tampa Bay, from the Tampa Bay ABC station, about the sailing team. And well, here, have a look and see what you think, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Also new this morning, a group of local high schoolers skilled in sailing, fishing, and golfing are sharing their talents with some buddies this week.
ABC Action News reporter Sean Daly is at the Davis Island Yacht Club, where students with special needs are learning some new skills with new friends.
Tell me all about it.
It was crazy and it was spectacular.
What was the best part?
Sailing on the boat with my friends.
From the second the school bus pulled into the Davis Island Yacht Club, this was a party. Plant High School's sailing, fishing, and golfing teams joining forces to host the school's Best Buddies program for students with special needs.
What do you love about it?
I just like helping people
Sailing team president Spencer Brooks says his club needed community service hours, but he wasn't loving his options.
The suggestion I got was to do a trash pickup on the
that's
beach.
what your mom said. You wanted no part of trash.
No, I really did not want to pick up other people's trash, so I thought maybe there's something we can do that actually help people.
The golf and fishing teams didn't want to pick up trash either, so they joined the party. As for Dada here, a junior in the Best Buddies program, he had the time of his life.
It was really amazing. I really love it and stuff.
On Davis Island, Sean Daly, ABC.
Okay, so Davis Island Yacht Club, which is one of the Tampa Bay, Tampa Clearwater, and so on, the Tri-Cities down there in the Bay. And it's a terrific group, and full marks to them. And, there'll be some criticism, won't there? Oh, these sailors and these golfers, and I guess the Fisherman Club, Fishing Club, didn't want to pick up trash, so they did this instead. Well, I think it's admirable that they did this. Give them a thumbs up and a heart, as many of you did. And it is just nice ink for the sport. I'm not sure we would have seen that many other places except in a sailing area like Tampa Bay, and I thank Bill Wingrove for sending it along. What do you think, Julia?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
And the kids obviously will not forget that experience.
Well, and I wonder if there's a message here, too, about high school sailing teams, club sailing teams, teaming up with other sports teams, other area teams to do good things for the community and draw some positive attention for the sport and for their teams. So maybe there's a lesson there. Speaking of good ink, we told you on Tuesday about our Sailing Illustrated contributor, Jeffrey Peterson, that he has indeed signed a letter of commitment to attend the United States Naval Academy in Annapolis and sail on their sailing team starting next year. He'll be a plebe, first year at that school. But there's some more good news about Jeffrey, who I say we're proud to have as a contributor, regular contributor, both here on the show, but also in writing. He's written several articles for the website. And specifically, do you recognize, how many of you, recognize this image? This is a beautiful Sharon Green image. I'll give you a clue. It's from 1986. Do you recognize that, Julia?
Probably the Baton series for 87.
Close. It's the 1986. It was in February of 86, the 12-meter World Championships. And it was a year ahead of the 87 America's Cup, which started in October, actually. And the trials, what was then the Louis Vuitton Cup, was October, November, December, and a little into January. And then the match started in February. Well, we had, as they used to do in the America's Cup, and I think it was a better format, they had a World Championship fleet racing a year before the event. I did it in San Diego in 92. The Kiwis did it in Auckland in 2000, 2003. And that has sort of gone away now, but beautiful photos in these beautiful sailing conditions off Fremantle, off Perth, Western Australia, captured here by Sharon Green. And why am I showing this picture in relation to Jeffrey Peterson is the question. See who's joining. A lot of you will know that. John Emmett's saying to Bill Wingrove, a lot of planes have Wi-Fi now. Indeed, they do. Well, the reason for this picture, this 12-meter Worlds in Perth, Western Australia, 1986, is because since then they have been running, that is the city of Perth, on the Swan River, a festival of sail last week of January, early February. This year it's Friday the 24th through Friday the 31st of January. And the 2020 City of Perth Festival of Sail, incorporating the Warren Jones International Youth, and I'll add the words match racing regatta, will take place in January. And we were pleased to learn that indeed this regatta will have, well, we'll tell you in a minute, but have a look at the video, the promotion video from last year's Festival of Sails on the Swan River in Frio. Yeah, Perth, call it Perth. Yeah.
It's terrific to have our international teams here helping clean a marina and the River Guardians clean up our City of Perth beaches this morning. We've collected over a trailer load of rubbish.
Again, this is last year's Festival of Sales.
Well, here we are at
Skippy,
the
listen.
Cup, part of the Warren Jones Regatta 2019. Sun's just going down. City over here just lighting up.
We're going to jive here.
And today with the Women on Water experience, we've got over 60 women down coming to try sailing and have a sail today out here on the waters of Perth. It's so easy, we're in a great city to go sailing. There's so many yacht clubs where you can go down and ask to jump on board and be part of a team and get some further sailing experiences, as well as with Swan River Sailing. So it's an opportunity to get your corporates down there and go sailing on the river and have a good afternoon in the fresh air and the wind.
Okay, so this is a pretty cool event that takes place here at the end of January, and it combines, as you heard in that video, wrap-up video from last year's event, it combines the Women on the Water event. It is a corporate event, and it's indeed a festival of sail that I think the main fixture is the Warren Jones International Youth Regatta, and it's a match racing championship co-sponsored by the City of Perth and Royal Freshwater Bay and Royal Perth Yacht Club and what is called Swan River Sailing. And you can go on to Swan River Sailing, I think it's .org, I can't remember, but just Google Swan River Sailing and you'll see their website. And they yesterday made the 2020 competitor announcement for the Warren Jones. And Jody Shields is signed on from Sydney. Michael Lunt is saying youth match racing at its best. And I think that is fair to say. And just before we go further, those of you who may not remember the name Warren Jones, he was the executive director. He was the COO, and really in many ways the CEO of the Australia 2 Challenge of Alan Bond's America's Cup Challenge that won the Cup from New York Yacht Club after 132 years of New York's holding it. And of course, won by the Royal Perth Yacht Club and Australia 2 in Newport, Rhode Island, 1983. And the late, great Warren Jones, what was a mentor of mine, in fact. Tommy, and when I became, a couple of years after that, not even a year after they won the Cup, I was executive director of New York Syndicate. And to say that I wanted to emulate Warren Jones, and did probably in some ways, both the good and the bad side, is probably correct. But this regatta, as several of you have said now, is just a terrific and arguably, along with the Governor's Cup, the top youth match racing championship in the world. One of the reasons this one is so good is that the age limit is not 23, but 25. So kids who have aged out of the Governor's Cup or the World Sailing's Youth Match Racing World Championship, such as that is, are still eligible to compete for another year or so in this. To wit, look at this list. You got Nick Egnott Johnson from New Zealand, who's just Leslie Egnott Johnson's son, and he's dominated, along with Harry Price and a couple others, the youth match racing world in the last year or so, couple years. Tom Grimes from the Cruising Yacht Club. Matt Whitfield, Julia, who you know well, who has stayed here with us at the Beach Street Yacht Club, and is the Great Britain's youth match racing champion of at least 1 year, maybe 2 years. Orlean, I don't know how to pronounce his first name, Orlean Piros, sorry about my French, from France, from Havre, Le Havre. He is sailing. Will Bolden from the Royal Freshwater Bay on the East Coast, and we know Will well as well. He's also a Fozy and often on here. Johanna Bergfist. It's hard for we Anglos to say the Scandinavian language, even though I'm half Norwegian. But Joanna is also a terrific sailor, male or female notwithstanding, and she will be there, as will Ethan Prito Lowe, also from, well, he's local in Royal Freshwater Bay. Now, those are, according to their website, 7 of the 10 entries. There were 1 or 2 other entries that had been notified in the press release yesterday, but one hears reliably that they have now chosen Jeffrey Peterson, our own Sailing Illustrated Jeffrey Peterson, to compete in this prestigious Warren Jones International Youth Regatta. So Jeffrey, representing Balboa Yacht Club and his team, I'm hearing, will be the only American entry. So not only representing us indirectly, but for sure his yacht club down in Orange County. So bravo, Zulu, to Jeffrey and to everybody involved down there. And this will have him chuffed, won't it? He stayed with us not too long ago, a month or so ago, when he was up sailing in San Francisco.
For the weekend. Yeah.
And I think I even put him on the air then. We did a special pop-up show. Terrific kid, great. This youth match racing stuff is growing. Not only in the Anglo countries, not just in New Zealand, Australia, here on the West. In fact, it's not even that well spread across the U.S. It's primarily a little bit in Long Island Sound and a little bit in Florida, touch in Texas, but for sure here on the West Coast, thanks in part to Andy Rose and the gang at Balboa Yacht Club, and because of Long Beach Yacht Club and the long traditional match racing event there, the Congressional Cup, which predates the Governor's Cup, the Youth Match Racing Championship, by a couple of years. Great stuff. Congrats to Jeffrey Peterson. And as Stingray says, the sailing is good, but that Perth City skyline is surprisingly nice too. And Julia, have you been to Perth?
No.
You've a big Austria. You've been to Australia a lot.
I've been to Austria at least 20 times.
But never to the West Coast. We lived in Perth, 85, 6, and 7 on and off in the lead up to that cup. And it's just it's a fabulous, it's warm, it's sunny, as you all saw who watched the cup in 86, 87 on ESPN, which helped put ESPN on the proverbial television map. Jody Shields saying he will be in Perth in a few weeks for the Moth Worlds. Looks like a great location. It is. As I say, it's fabulous, great, wonderful people. And as you said, Julia, there's some great wine down there in Margaret River, down south of.
Yeah, and Swan.
And the Swan Brewery, which is a big beer company.
Well, but there's Swan breweries. Swan River.
Is there a winery?
I think several.
Is there? And of course, if you do go to Perth and haven't been there, go down to Cape Lewin. I should have put, my Tom Ehman's geography class. And I didn't put it on. I should have put on. We will next time. We're going to cover this.
Okay.
We'll put up put a map up and talk about Cape Lewin, which is the southwestern corner of Australia, where the Indian Ocean meets the Southern Ocean.
Oh yes.
And it's a cool place to go down there and stand on the tip of that cape. Okay. Anybody else making comments before we leave? There are a lot of Michael Lund is saying there's a lot of corporate engagement, and a lot of clubs can learn how to run a successful regatta from this event. Another regatta that is well worth mentioning is the Harkin International Regatta at Royal Prince Alfred that is on right now. Yes, indeed, and that is going on right now. They are both mixed events, meaning men and women. And then they're after the Harkin, then next weekend, this Harkin is at Royal Prince Alfred, up north of Sydney, a little bit on the East Coast. And then next weekend, the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, CYCA, is running the Nespresso. Jeffrey, speaking of the devil, is also going to be sailing in that. And I hope next Friday, a week from today, as we have done the past 2 years, on our Thanksgiving Friday, have a live hookup with some of the sailors down at the Nespresso down in Australia at that event, because it's just, as Michael Lund's saying, it's just such a cool event. Hi, Bill Canfield, Jan O'Malley terrific sailor that both of them are. Leslie Martin is in Antigua. Thanks for your note this morning, Leslie, where it's plus 4 hours. It's 17:29 in Antigua.
She'll have it
Friday afternoon.
Influx from San Francisco soon.
That's right. We've got a bunch of friends going to Antigua. When? Tomorrow?
Today. Well, they went up. The first ones left last night, so they'll be getting to Antigua right now.
So they're down there for a week.
Yeah.
10 days a week. Yeah. That's a crowd of friends of ours from St. Francis Yacht Club. Okay, congratulations, Jeffrey, and any other comments in this respect. But if you do go to it's funny, you do go to Australia and you get to Sydney if you're coming from our direction and not from Europe. Well, even from Europe, although there's precious few flights direct to Perth. I think you can still get, when you can get from Singapore. There may even be a flight from London to Perth now. There was for a while a talk of one on Qantas. But if you get to Sydney coming from our direction and you think you are anywhere near Perth, that's like getting to Miami and thinking you're near LA. I mean, it's still, a bunch of time zones and a good 5+ hour flight over to the
yes, absolutely
to the west coast of Oz, that great country. Okay. Let's stop there and see if there's anybody else we've met now that we seem to have our computer sorted out. Thank goodness. Margarita Marshall, a new haircut. Very, very nice. Are you talking about Julia? You must be talking about Julia's haircut. Yes, Margarita, I did finally get my haircut. Thank you for noticing. Hi, Richard Gladwell. I'm going to talk about some of the photos you took from 2.5 plus nautical miles.
Spectacular.
Did you see those photos you took?
Yes, I did. I even wrote to him, telling him how wonderful they were. Yeah.
Bill Wingrove, what altitude don't let go? Jeffrey Stingray is saying. Okay, gang. So Mark Dowdy, Jan Peter Anderson, Don Logan down in SoCal, the drone pilot. Don Lunabos is up in Sonoma. Niley Williamson, Denise Peterson, computer head. Yeah, it hadn't had its iced coffee. Mark Dowdy, nice product placement here. I wonder what he's talking about. Tom Herbert Evans. Tom, can you drop me a note? Just send me a note to sailingillustrated@gmail.com, for lack of a better email. You can do it to my personal if you have it. But let's get you hooked up on here and talk about SailGP and the program that you're running for SailGP. John Emmett, I would not recommend throwing iced coffee on the computer. Well, we didn't do that. There were a bunch of files on there in the download file.
I know.
Just before we went to air, I actually had to reboot the computer. And this is weird. It seems to be sorted out, hopefully. Stingray would say, how many software engineers does it take, this is Clark Chapin, to change a light bulb? Answer, none. It's a hardware problem. I think this was a hardware problem.
Yeah.
But it could have been.
That's a great comment.
Maybe somebody was watching porn on this computer yesterday and loaded it up with. This computer doesn't get used for that. Mom, you're watching. I can really inform you. Speaking of iced coffee, we picked that up living in
Perth,
Western Australia. Yeah. And that's what they drink because it's so bloody hot out there, especially in the morning before the Fremantle Doctor, that's the sea breeze, the strong afternoon sea breeze comes in midday, blows the flies away and cools everything down. But it's too hot to drink hot coffee in Frio in the morning. Okay. Unless you have been in a cave someplace, not watching TV for the last week, you would not know. That's the only way you would not know about His Royal Highness Prince Andrew and that crouton car crash of an interview he gave it aired Saturday night on BBC. He gave it on Thursday, apparently, to this. I thought the gal did a trick. I can't remember her name. The Brits on here will know. But it has resulted in an outcry, and it made him very unpopular indeed, if he wasn't already, because of the allegations. The response to the allegations on that BBC interview were strange at best. I won't say anything more than that. I know His Royal Highness, not well, but I've spent 4 or 5 different occasions hosting him at the 84 Olympics. My wife Leslie and I hosted him. We were assigned to him to show him around the yachting venue, and he was there, and he was, he's quite young. And then he had been in Newport, and I'd met him. He was 25, I think, in Newport in 1983, when he was the belle of the ball, so to speak, when the British, Peter de Savary and the British America's Cup team, Newport 1983, hosted what all of us think was the coolest America's Cup party in the modern era, at least any party that we've been to. Louis Vuitton's run a bunch of real fabulous parties, but the British ball in Newport in 1983, at which Prince Andrew was one of the VIP guests, was just an amazing affair. We met him there, and I was not yet formally involved in the Cup. I was executive director of U.S. YRU, and we kind of helped host, not in a big way by any means. But this thing happened over the weekend, and why are you saying, are we talking about this on a sailing show? Well, then it turned out that the Queen, Her Majesty the Queen, has told that apparently asked Prince Andrew to step back off from his royal duties, and part of that was because his elder brother, the Crown Prince, who presumably is next, who he is next in line to be king, and presumably will be after Her Majesty, but Prince Charles was down in Auckland, and suddenly these press reports started coming about Prince Charles having given his mother a bell, as the Brits would say, calling his mom and saying, we got to do something about Andy, and so apparently some combination of the Queen's discomfort and Prince Charles calling from Auckland. These were all the press reports. I'm not making this up. But still, you're wondering, well, that's a pretty tenuous connection to sailing and to the Cup world. Well, here's the real connection. And here is His Royal Highness, who is the Commodore of the Royal Thames Yacht Club, listening to this crouton from the Golden Gate Yacht Club, then the Vice Commodore of the Golden Gate Yacht Club. Now, I was invited to do an America's Cup presentation at Royal Thames Yacht Club, which many of you know is on Knightsbridge, on Knightsbridge Street, kind of kitty corner from Harrods. And it was a terrific event. The place was packed. Prince Andrew came in his capacity as the Commodore of the Royal Thames Yacht Club. Now, it's sort of an honorary position. He doesn't go in and chair board meetings, and he doesn't go hand out trophies he does at some, but not at very many events. But he is formally the Commodore. And I sent a note formally to the Royal Thames asking if they knew if he would be continuing as Commodore, or because I think it's a private role. I don't think it's royal patronage, but I think it's his decision, like some of his private charities, asking whether he would be stepping back from this position. And I've not heard back from the Royal Thames formally. I have heard back informally from a senior serious person in UK yachting and the Thames, who says it's fully expected that he will, not now, but in due course, will quietly stand back from his position at the Royal Thames. And of course, here in the States, we're hearing about FBI investigations and the need to come give testimony. And I don't want to get into all that. That's not the point. Okay, so that's the first bit of our three-part kind of one here's breaking. I wouldn't call that breaking news. One here's news with respect to the UK. And we teased this a little bit, especially this news. Now, you know what that is, Julia?
Yes.
That is Fastnet Rock.
Yeah.
And this famous shot from the 2019 Fastnet race. And I don't know if that's Wizard. I don't know which boat that is. I was trying to find that. I had the shot. I teased it. I used it on my Facebook page. Fabulous shot as one of the yachts is about to round Fastnet Rock in the 2019 Rolex Fastnet race, which has for years, since 1925? When did this race start? It started a long time ago. And this was the 40-something, 46th, I can't remember. Fastnet race, starting in Cowes, Isle of Wight, going out around the Fastnet Rock to port, and back and finishing at Plymouth. 605 nautical mile race, and this has been the course since forever. Guess what? That is about to change. In fact, one hears reliably that on Tuesday there will be a press conference, or an announcement anyway. I don't know if there's a press conference, that the Royal Ocean Racing Club that runs the RORC Fastnet race will indeed announce that the finish for the 2021 Fastnet will be in France, in Cherbourg, across the English Channel, near the Channel Islands, near Guernsey and Jersey. But instead of, you see up here, I use my telestrator with any luck. Instead of coming back and finishing up here at Plymouth, they're going to come and go across the English Channel and finish here. Whoops, I didn't quite draw that correctly, but finish here at Cherbourg, which means quite a bit longer distance, which means the tides, and the particularly interesting tides there coming into Cherbourg, let alone the English Channel. So what do you do with the records? Okay, you say, well, it's X many miles longer, and I don't know what it'll be, so we'll adjust the records according to the extra distance. But then how do you take into account the tides and the so on and so forth, the approach to Cherbourg, which will be different than the approaches to Plymouth? Well, we'll see how they do that. But one hears reliably that on Tuesday, the Royal Ocean Racing Club is going to confirm that the finish, they'll still start in Cowes. It'll still go out around the Rock, obviously, and then come back and finish off Cherbourg, France. Now, this has the traditionalists with whom I've spoken, and it's not public yet, but certainly the cognoscenti who will be on the board and will have been consulted. A lot of them that I've spoken with. In fact, I've tried to find one that is amused by this. Now, Eddie Warden, we'll try to get Eddie on here. He is the CEO of the RORC, of the racing program. And Eddie's a longtime friend, match racing friend, and so on. We'll try to get Eddie on here soon, and, in due course. It doesn't have to be.
He must be doing it for marketing reasons. So.
Well, exactly. Say that again. You used the word marketing and not...
I did.
Not
yeah.
Yeah, I think Julia's right. I think it is, and that's what the traditionalists are telling me. This is all about money. And as usual in these kinds of decisions, you can follow the money. And apparently somebody, the Cherbourg Tourism Authority or sponsors, maybe Rolex themselves. I mean, they wouldn't have done this if Rolex didn't buy into this. Rolex has one more go on their 10-year contract. Is this the fifth? Is this the fifth Fastnet race sponsored by Rolex? From memory, somebody on here will know. The tide, Clark Chapin is saying the tide carried the telestrator past Cherbourg.
Yeah, you got to watch that.
Yeah, I did. Well, we were obviously.
And Emmett says, is it a hook finish?
Well, it's not. Sorry, I'm a crouton.
Yeah.
When I come, I'll draw it better now. Here we go. Let me set it over your shoulder, Julia. Put it here. Obviously, they come in from the Rock and they're going to finish something like that. I don't know where or how, but they'll announce that one here's on Tuesday in London.
Margarita Marshall hardly believes it. They really want to change the Fastnet.
That's what all the traditionalists are saying, the people who've sailed in the race. And I mean, that is a big difference in distance, distance, now that we're talking in French. And it's just, I'm frankly was shocked when I heard it. I didn't want to, I heard it a couple days ago. You may have seen me tease it on my Facebook page. I did it again this morning, but a couple days ago. And the traditionalists like Margarita, Julia, anybody else that you see comments from?
No, not yet.
So it's a big change. It is a big change. And Margarita Marshall, just 7 or 8 question marks, they really want to change it. So one hears. And I mean, this is one of these, you double and triple check it. And I would not only bet, I wouldn't never bet my life on it, but I'd certainly bet the ranch on this one. This one's going to happen on Tuesday. Okay, now we told you, we broke this news a couple weeks ago, that Sail GP, the British Sail GP team, was being taken over by Sir Ben Ainslie. And a lot of you poo-pooed it and said, oh, well, Tom, you're talking through your hat. And the team was not denying it in so few words, but some were saying, there's the Sail GP side were saying, well, there's no deal done yet, which I take them at their word, and I believed it to be true. Ben Ainslie and his crowd were saying, no, come on, Ehman doesn't know what he's talking about, and as usual, he's talking through his hat, to put it politely. That's what he said.
Yes.
Maybe they blamed it on you, Julia.
Oh, I'm sure it was my fault.
Well, I can tell you that also on Tuesday, in London, there will be a press conference. They have just called it by the Sail GP GBR team, and I suspect then we will learn the fate of their current team, Dylan Fletcher, Chris Draper, Stuart Bithell, and so on, Mark and Richard Mason, Matthew Barber, Mark Gottrell, and Richard. And Matthew, we don't know. I am told that Ben Ainslie is going to steer the Sail GP team from GBR. They're going to subsume it. They're going to take over the running costs, or largely take over the running costs, which are said to be $5 million. In fact, we told you a couple weeks ago when we announced this that Larry has told Russell to tell all the teams that by the end of this year they've got to be self-supporting. Remember, last year Larry paid $6 million for 5 events. That's 30. Let's get this right. No, he paid $5 million for 6 teams, which is $30 million. And then he paid $4 million for another 5 events to put those events on, or so we read in some of the interviews by senior serious Sail GP people. And that's $50 million. And yes, Larry has said, I'm sure so Russell could go, he said, well, Larry's going to back this for 5 years so that they could get television contracts. They could get Jody Shields signed up to do the commentary on Shirley Robertson and others, and get the teams involved. But that's a big ask, even of Larry. And he's obviously not poor. And thank God for Larry Ellison. There are people who want to criticize him, but that guy has put somewhere around, by my back of the envelope calculation, $1 billion into our sport. I don't know anyone else who's done that. I don't know if Thomas Lipton, Hamish Ross, who's on here, or Richard Gladwell, or Bob Fisher, if he's on, might know that in today's dollars what kind of money Sir Thomas put in.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Probably not that much, because they weren't dealing with as many boats.
Well, he did 5 America's Cup campaigns, though.
Yeah.
Sir Thomas did. So, and those boats were not cheap, and those campaigns were not cheap, and they went on for years.
Yes.
And remember, too, that Sir Thomas Lipton was preparing for a 1914 America's Cup defense, and then the war broke out, and he kept going and going and keeping his program going. He had a boat in storage over in the U.S., and it didn't happen until 1920 that finally.
Yeah, and that's a great story.
Go ahead.
No, I just admire his perseverance.
Indeed. So we'll see what happens to these guys. The announcement, I am reliably informed, is Tuesday. So as we told you weeks ago, and despite those of you in certain fora, the online forums of some of you who populate those, I can tell you that this is being announced on Tuesday, that indeed Ben Ainslie will be driving the Sail GP GBR team, and who he brings from his America's Cup team, his INEOS Team UK. We'll probably find all that out on Tuesday. Privately, one hears that Dylan and Stewie Bithell are saying that they are going back to doing their Olympic campaign. Fair enough. Okay, now there's one other piece of news that came out of Auckland with respect to Sail GP, and we've heard about this from Jody Shields and Shirley and others who talked about it on the television show, the last show in particular, Marseille. But the revolutionary new modular wing sail will also it's been developed, and this is a wing sail that gets taller or shorter depending upon the wind conditions. A modular wing sail will also undergo testing on the 7th boat, which we also told you is being built down in Warkworth in New Zealand, in preparation for being fitted to the entire Sail GP fleet before the 2020 San Francisco Sail GP.
Wow.
Now, why San Francisco? Well, it's because it's windy here. And the rigs right now, the perception is they're a little too big for windy conditions like you saw in Cowes and here in San Francisco. A little too dangerous, a little too wicked up, overpowered. So they're going to have this modular wing where they can literally knock out a section, or maybe 2 even. I've heard as many as 2 sections can be knocked out. It's a first of its kind. I'm now reading the third line, second sentence. A first of its kind, the wing comprises of sections that can be assembled in varying lengths, initially from 18 to 24 meters, with the future ability to go to 29 meters to enable the F-50s to compete in a never-before-seen range of weather conditions. Vital weight savings have been achieved with the all-new wing and with a more advanced structure and removal of rigging and cables inside the hollow structure, adding additional performance gains in light winds. So this rig is not only going to help depower the boat in breeze, it's also going to get taller so that when they're in really light air, as we saw any number of the races, in light air, they will be more powered up, more wicked up. So I think that's a pretty cool development about SailGP 2020, this new modular wing sail. We heard about it. This is not breaking news by any stretch, but this particular article just came out in New Zealand today that details some of the work that's going on in Warkworth, which is the town up north of Auckland, where SailGP boats are all being built in a facility owned by, no surprise, Larry Ellison, where we did a lot of our Oracle Team USA structural work as well. Okay, now let's stop there because no doubt there will be comments. Julia, do you want to start?
One thing that was discussed a little bit earlier where are they going to, with a longer distance, how are they going to handicap the winner? We don't know that.
We don't know that, and as I said, the interesting question is the forget about handy. They'll use the same handicap, whether that's not an issue, but it's then how do you score? They've got records from the start in Cowes to the finish in Plymouth, and then how are they going to do it with my little additional green stripe on the telestrator?
Yeah. And Stingray says, "Hi, Hammy. Where's the Royal Ocean Racing Club Yacht Club physically? Is that the club that GBR challenged under the 86 AC 36? Why not under the Royal Yacht Club?"
Okay, no. The answer to that is that INEOS Team UK, Sir Ben Ainslie's team, challenged through the Royal Yacht Squadron, and what Hamish Ross argues is that it's actually not through the Royal Yacht Squadron, which is down at the Cowes Castle. He argues that it's not physically through the Royal Yacht Squadron's corporate structure. It's through a side company owned by somebody. And we're not sure who owns it, whether the Royal Yacht Squadron owns it, but it's called Royal Yacht Squadron Racing. And Hamish Ross, who's an America's Cup Deed of Gift authority and historian, and our longtime friend, argues that that's not necessarily correct, that it should have been a challenge presented by and through the Royal Yacht Squadron.
I remember that, yeah.
The two other big prestigious clubs, and there are dozens in the UK, not to diminish any of the others. The Royal Thames Yacht Club, which is physically on Knightsbridge in the West End in London. That is the other club of record. We were talking about the Royal Thames Yacht Club and their challenge. They've been a challenger on and off in the Cup forever, but they're not this time. And that's the club through which Peter de Savary challenged in 1983 when Prince Andrew came over for the British Ball. So we have talked about the Royal Thames Yacht Club, terrific club, and not the least of which is because Julia, members of the New York Yacht Club and St. Francis Yacht Club enjoy reciprocal privileges. So you, when you go to London, can stay at the Royal Thames Yacht Club, which has bedrooms.
Cabins.
You're right. They're called cabins on 60
for a reason, because they're small.
And it's right there in Shopping District, and Hyde Park is just on the north side of the club. You get up in the morning, you see the Queen's horses going by, and it's really a sexy place to stay. The rooms are not ostentatious, but they're certainly adequate and you can't beat the location. It's right on the Piccadilly line and the Tube, and there's a lot of thumbs up being given for that. So no, Stingray, the answer is that's the Royal Thames Yacht Club. Then the Royal Ocean Racing Club is just like it sounds. It's a group of primarily offshore yachtsmen and women who conduct, among other things, the Fastnet race and a bunch of other. In fact, they run a race from Cowes over to Cherbourg, I think. The Royal Ocean Racing Club does. Annual. I think that's an annual race. But there's stuff across the English Channel and up and down the Solent. And the Royal Ocean Racing Club This is a bit of a parallel for those of you here in the U.S. at least. U.S. Sailing, U.S. YRU, before my days, I was one of the guys that helped get everything together under one roof, both offshore and inshore, and Olympic, under U.S. what was then U.S. Yacht Racing Union. But in the decade before that, there was an outfit, still is, a very prestigious group here in the U.S. called the Cruising Club of America, CCA,
yes, indeed,
that promulgated the CCA rating rule and ran a lot of races and still do or does, depending if you're talking about the group or the singular organization.
Yeah.
So in some ways, you had the CCA running offshore racing, and you had U.S. YRU running small boat, inshore, dinghy, Olympic type racing, and the racing rules, the bigger picture stuff. In the UK, for a long time, the RYA has similarly run small boat racing, training, racing rules, that sort of stuff. And the RORC has been seen as the big time offshore racing authority in the UK. And I think to a degree that's still the case. There's a lot of thumbs up and hearts and so on to that. So anybody wants to argue or add or subtract from that, please do. And we'll take a quick look to see Daniel Gruen, John Emmett. That is true. But let me see what we're saying here. Okay, I'm going to skip through the comments now, and we'll come back to that. So I think, Stingray, we answered your question. Ivan Grekov, welcome to you, the head of the Bulgarian SSL, Star Sailors League team. Hi, John Sangmeister, who is an authority, I think, by now on clubs, including and especially the Royal Ocean Racing Club, or soon will be. David Pritchard, RORC, are based in London. Oh, I didn't finish that. Like the Royal Thames, the RORC at the end of St. James Place, right around the corner from, no surprise, St. James Palace, the Royal Ocean Racing Club owns a 4 or 5 story beautiful building, and they've got a bar and a little restaurant and bedrooms, small cabins in which members can stay. And I've stayed there only once or twice because I usually stay at the Thames, but we'll tell you what, I played the guitar there many nights during the weeks of the IYRU, International Yacht Racing Union. They would have a dinner, and we'd repair to the Royal, the RORC, as they call it, the RORC, and the Kings and the people from both the RORC offshore world and the World Sailing. We'd go there and play the guitar and sing songs and make good use of their honor bar. This is a club that after hours the staff goes home and the members are still keeping an eye on things, but there's an honor bar. There's a piece of paper, or there was, I haven't been there in a couple of years, and after hours, if you wanted a beer or you wanted a crew tonic, as Stingray would say, a gin and tonic or whatever, you'd pour it, you'd write it down, and then they'd bill you. And it's
very civil.
Very civil indeed, isn't it? Okay, let's move ahead and talk about the American. I'm not going to call it the American Cup boat race anymore. My mother just thinks, speaking of Crewtonic, Mom, I will not call it the American Cup boat race anymore.
I agree with it.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Well, the America's Cup, first of all, in Germany last weekend before last, actually, this group, 3 new inductees into the America's Cup Hall of Fame. There on the far left, our longtime friend, Commodore Dyer Jones, William H. Dyer Jones, who's a past Commodore New York Yacht Club. He coincidentally was the race committee chairman and straight up did a great job in 1983, didn't sway it one way or another, ran 7 stellar races, which, of course, led to his race management didn't, but that's the Cup when New York lost it to Royal Perth Yacht Club. And Dyer has been the regatta director for subsequent events, the Challenger Selection Series and so on. Terrific guy, great race manager, well-deserving of his induction. Behind the trophy is Bruno Trublet, who I think, along with the lady on Bruno's left, our right, I think that's Henri Racamier's widow, the late, great Henri Racamier, who was the head of Louis Vuitton when they started the Louis Vuitton Cup, when Bruno and Henri Racamier started it in 1983. And, of course, no sooner did they start it than the challengers won the Cup. And it was part because of the money and the organization of that now formal authority of Louis Vuitton and Bruno's good work to run a proper Challenger Selection Series that led to the selection. And then it also helped get all the challengers together and back against us, against New York Yacht Club, back the ultimate challenger, in this case Royal Perth Yacht Club's Australia 2. And that's part of the game, is that normally the challengers all gang up against the defender. It's king of the mountain. The defender's up here on top of the America's Cup mountain, and the challengers are going up, throwing tar and trying to pull each other down. One of them's strong enough to get to the top. Meanwhile, the defender's up there throwing rocks down at everybody that's climbing up the hill, and somebody gets a little further up, just like in the presidential primary here, they all start throwing rocks at the person who's perceived to be the furthest up the hill or up the mountain. It's king of the mountain, modern day. So congratulations to Dyer, to the late, great Henri Racamier. He was a gentleman. He was a fine guy. Margarita Marshall, who's on here, will agree with me. Just one of the nicest people you ever met in the sport. Bill Trenkle, a longtime operative with Dennis Conner and his head of operations, and portside trimmer for D.C. for Dennis and Stars and Stripes, also well-deserved. And I don't think that's Bill in the middle there. I don't see Bill in this picture. I wonder if he was even there. I meant to text him before the show, but I ran out of time. In the green tie is Tom Whidden. And then in the blue bow tie is Ken McAlpine, both former inductees. Tom Schnackenberg in the black bow tie, then to Ken McAlpine's left, to the right of Ken, the longtime sail designer and great sailor, both from Australia and New Zealand, both with Australia and New Zealand. Then Grant Simmer, who was with Australia too in 1983 when they won the Cup. I guess he was the navigator, on that team. Grant Simmer, second from the right, and he now is the CEO of Sir Ben Ainslie's team. He was with us for a while with Oracle Team USA, and now is the CEO of Ben's team, INEOS Team UK. And then far right is the chairman of the selection committee, Stephen Suchia, from Cincinnati, Ohio, a Thistle and Flying Scot sailor, who's also a bit of an America's Cup historian and author and an all-around good guy whom we've gotten to know. Julie, we had him here to the Beach Street Yacht Club.
We did.
But we've not had Stephen on the show yet.
I maybe by phone only.
I don't know. We got to get him on. He's a great guy and chairman of the selection committee.
And writing great tomes of.
He's doing a big book on couple.
Yeah.
I wonder where that is. I haven't seen that. Okay, Stephen, if you're watching, send me a note too, and we'll get you on. Anyway, congratulations to Messrs. Joan, Racamier, and Trenkle, all deserving of their induction on November 16th into the America's Cup Hall of Fame. It was held in Germany, and I think up in Flensburg. And I was waiting for a video. I didn't do it right. I put it on my Facebook page. I didn't put it on the show because I was hoping we'd have a video or something more than this one picture, which I finally did find somewhere. Okay. Also in America's Cup news, we told you some weeks ago, that American Magic, New York Yacht Club's America's Cup team, was headed again to Pensacola for their winter training, the Northern Hemisphere winter, and that it would be their second home again. And then we told you that they had, in fact, broken camp in Newport, Rhode Island. And then we told you that they would be back on the water the first week of December, all of which I can confirm is once again true. One hears with 100% reliability. And we also have a world exclusive photo.
That's a great picture.
Of the boat leaving earlier this week, departing from their Rhode Island team base, and it being trucked. As we also told you, somebody asked us a few weeks ago, would they be truck it or ship it? By now, they'll truck it down, which the team told us that was the case and said I could say that. And it is almost, if not already there, it's en route to Pensacola. There was another picture we saw on one of the forums of the boat in Connecticut headed down the, I don't think they could put it on the Connecticut Turnpike. I think they were on probably US 6, Route 6, one of the highways that parallels the Connecticut Turnpike. But anyway, the boat is on its way to Pensacola, and they will start sailing again, I'm reliably informed, the first week of December, and continue to sail in Pensacola until they break camp and for Cagliari, and ship the boat to Cagliari. And I know how they're going to ship it, and I know approximately when, but I'll leave that to them to announce, because we don't want to, I don't, we know a lot of stuff that we hear and we know, but if the team asks us not to say it, we don't, generally speaking. If they, because, they all want to keep their own, and it's for safety reasons as well. Anyway, so that's what's going on there. Now, we also told you some time ago, a week ago, that INEOS Team UK was having mast problems. Not big deal, but delamination problems in their rig. Now, you see here in the front of this boat, this is I think this is the team. I'm going to show you this video. You see right along here, you see that wire? Mm-hmm. And we've been wondering why, and I reached out to the team and asked them, never heard back, why they've been sailing with the windage of that wire from the top of the mast down to the tip of their bowsprit. Well, it's because, as it turns out, one hears, because of the concern over the DLAM possible problems with this rig. And
what does that have to do with the DLAM?
Well, if the mast is delaminating, you're worried about whether the thing's going to come tumbling down. You would try to do a little bit
secure it. Okay.
A little bit better job just to secure it while you're out training.
Yeah.
And that's apparently what has been going on, and that's the answer to why we asked, why we were wondering about this thing in the front here. And here's the video. We're going to replay this video of a week or so ago when we saw them do a dry tack, or nearly dry tack. See again the wire?
Yeah.
You wouldn't do that, and there's also one on the back. They've got two wires to the back of the boat there you can see. Shrouds, stays. You wouldn't have that in normal race configuration. There is congrats to them, the dry tack. And it was a well and truly upwind dry tack, and the team on the chase boat were whoa, all excited, as you can, as they should be. It's probably one of the first. And there again are all these wires.
Will they take them down to race?
Well, yeah, for sure. They've got to sort the mast out. They can't afford, that's so much windage, especially at the speeds these boats will be going in the 40s or maybe 50s.
Could that really interfere with wind?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, that's why they're all got their heads down low. Any windage at all, they're doing everything they can to reduce and indeed eliminate windage. You never sail around with that forestay and those two backstays. Significant windage, especially at the speeds they're going. Okay, so INEOS Team UK, that video that we've shown you, and there again is another photo. And you can see also the sticker right there on the mast of Southern Spars, the logo of Southern Spars down in New Zealand and Auckland, and one hears reliably that Southern has built masts for INEOS Team UK, the Italian team Luna Rossa Prata Pirelli, and for Emirates Team New Zealand, no surprise. The New York Yacht Club mast has been built by an outfit called Offshore something, in Detroit, Michigan, or so I'm reliably informed. And now you say, well, aren't the masts all supposed to be one design? Well, yes, they are. They are one design, and as we told you last week, there is a spec to which all the masts must be built, the lamination schedule and the number of layers and the exact, really quite precise. But it's not sole source. In other words, they don't all have to come from the same supplier, as did the foil arms, which you all know were built by up in Bergamo at the boat building facility of Luna Rossa Prata Pirelli. And the mechanism, the foil cant system, the FCS, the mechanism that's inside the hull that cants the foil arms up and down, that was all built by the same supplier down in New Zealand under the watchful eye of Emirates Team New Zealand. Not the masts. They can come from any mast builder, but they have to meet the spec of the class rule. Okay, now I'm going to show you the video of New York Yacht Club that they released after they saw the dry tack of INEOS Team UK. And now this is not a recent video. This is taken a month or more ago because obviously the team has long since broken camp now, torn down, packed up, and heading to Florida. But they only released this a week or so ago. I aired it and others have aired it, but there is a dry tack from American Magic. And they didn't release that, interestingly, until they saw the video from INEOS Team UK, and there was New York saying, well, been there, done that. It's a little one-upsmanship here between the teams. Very cool stuff.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we haven't seen any videos out of Emirates Team New Zealand, not even from Richard Gladwell, but we have seen today, and you said, Julia, you wrote to Richard about these?
Yes, it was astounding.
He took from 2.5, he said, from a distance of between 2.5 and 5 nautical miles, Richard Gladwell up on North Head, the high point there on the point of land that demarks kind of the north side of the Auckland Harbor. And you go around it, you go around North Head and go out between North Head and Rangitoto, so to speak, and Takapuna, and you go out then into the Hauraki Gulf. Well, this is one of the 5 potential sailing areas, and as Richard said, there's plenty of sheep in the paddock in this area, which is tidal, but it's kind of protected and it's hard to see, hard to get to. It keeps prying eyes away unless you're Richard Gladwell and you're up there high with this amazing camera that he's got. And, of course, sheep in the paddock referring to the whitecaps. This was a pretty breezy day. These photos are from today, Friday the 22nd. Of course, it's now 10. It's 10 in the morning down there on Saturday in New Zealand. And I'll back that off. You can see let me back that.
Yeah.
There we go. We don't need to look at New York again. We can get rid of the title. There it is. You can see it's windy and rough. And Richard has drawn an interesting conclusion from these 3 photos. Here's the next one. Now, the boat is smoking, literally. Well, not literally, but the water obviously makes it's clearly going very fast. Yeah. And Richard said he's standing up there on top, and he can judge the breeze. Any of us that have sailed a lot can look at the water, surface the water, and tell you that that's 20-plus knots. And Richard confirms that the Dolphin, Te Aihe, was sailing in 20 to 25 knots of wind. So says Richard Gladwell. And here's now a crash that Richard took. But again, Richard could take video from up there. He could take video. Come on, he's got a big, long lens on a camera that can shoot probably 4K video, let alone 1080p or 720.
I mean, he was careful to say that it is the first indication of what wind limits might be.
Exactly. And in fact, I printed what he said in the article. He said the unanswered questions on an upper end, I didn't get it here into the show because I ran out of time, so you'll have to bear with me while I read it. The unanswered questions on an upper end wind limit for the 36th America's Cup, which we've asked here a lot, got a partial response from the Defender, Richard asserts, Emirates Team New Zealand, in a training session east of Browns Island. That's the here what he calls the paddock. East of Browns Island today, Friday the 22nd. Sailing in southwest winds blowing 20 to 25 knots, Sail World caught the AC-75 Te Aihe as she had finished the session and made her way back to her Auckland base 12 nautical miles away. Her training area, usually well away from prying eyes, is known as the paddock and was used extensively in the build-up to the 2017 America's Cup in Bermuda, as offering moderately sheltered flat water reminiscent of Bermuda. The area is designated as one of 2 heavy air, because it's sheltered, race course areas for the 36th America's Cup. The amount of whitewater in the course was significant, a sea condition known locally as there being plenty of white sheep in the paddock. A paddock is a New Zealand farming euphemism for a field. But then we knew that, right?
Well, more than a field. It's an enclosure.
For an enclosure for pull your mic closer. You kind of sit back there and relax.
Sorry, but
and then I'll be criticized for not maintaining proper audio levels here.
Yes, sorry.
And it's known as an enclosure for barnyard or farmland animals, generally sheep in the paddock. Cool.
I like the expression, though.
Cool stuff. Okay, now there's a little bit more news. And you all know this picture, right? This beautiful picture of Cagliari, Sardinia, Italy, which is the home to Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli's team base. There it is on the south end of Sardinia, one of 3 towns with airports on Sardinia. This beautiful sailing island in the central Med, just an hour's flight from Rome or Naples or down from Milano. They have, during the summertime, there's a fair number of flights. Even from Munich, I think, in the summer, there used to be. Nice place to sail, and of course it is the location of LRPP, Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli's team base. Now, why am I bringing this up? You all know it's there. You've seen the pictures before. Well, there is a meeting that's been going on all week down in New Zealand between the Challenger of Record and the Defender. And they're trying to sort out a number of issues. And I hear about some of the issues and what they are from various sources close to the teams and others. Because the protocol can be amended by the agreement of only the Challenger of Record and the Defender. One of the current provisions of the protocol is that next year's schedule of events, the America's Cup World Series, must be spelled out, must be published by the end of this month, which is in, 8 days, the 30th of November. Now, they could amend the protocol, and there has been some discussion, one hears, about amending the protocol to give themselves more time, which the other teams, notably the Brits and the Americans, because they're not part of that, I assume, I haven't heard this from them, but one assumes they will not be amused if the dates are not published. Now, the one date that has been announced, but not formally published, was announced in Newport, Rhode Island in the end of July when we had that America's Cup Gala, hosted by Luna Rossa Prada, by Prada. That is the regatta in Cagliari at the end of April next year. That's the only regatta formally notified. It's well known that there will be a regatta in Auckland at Christmas time, the so-called Christmas regatta, Christmas race, at the end of next year, 2020. The question is, are there going to be any other events? Because the protocol currently calls for 4 events. And it's also widely assumed that in addition to Cagliari, there will be then 2 events in New Zealand late next year, late 2020. The interesting question is whether there will be a race, which Emirates Team New Zealand badly wants, in Portsmouth, the UK, not Plymouth, in Portsmouth, which is the venue, the base for INEOS Team UK. Now, why there when INEOS Team UK says we don't want the event, it's a big distraction and yada, yada. Nor does, frankly, do Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, nor does New York Yacht Club American Magic, so far as I understand from all the teams and cross-checking with various other sources. But Emirates Team New Zealand wants this regatta in Portsmouth next, call it what, June, April, May. The April regatta is in Cagliari. Call it, give them a month to get up there, so sometime in June. Because the chairman of Emirates Airline, who is a Brit and lives in London, has a summer home, big place in, guess where? Portsmouth. He wants a regatta. He, of course, is a big sponsor, Emirates Airlines, of the Kiwis. I hear there's a real set-to over that regatta because the 3 other forget about Long Beach Yacht Club's Stars Plus Stripes, Stars Plus Stripes Team USA. We'll talk about them in a minute. The other teams don't want a regatta. They want to go back to their home base and they want to train. And they don't want to have to then hang out with their boat in Europe, not being able to train, then go to this regatta in Portsmouth in, tell me when, June. I told you weeks ago that I heard that Mr. Dalton, Grant Dalton, and Emirates Team New Zealand are saying, if you don't agree, you challengers, and you particularly Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, because they're the only other party that has to sign a change to the has to agree to a change to the protocol. If you won't agree to it, to come to our regatta, Emirates Team New Zealand, in Portsmouth, we're not going to come to your regatta in Cagliari.
Oh, no.
And I've heard that again from 3 sources in the last 2 days. as these meetings have been progressing down in Auckland, and it's really not, I don't know if it's resolved or not, but I understand it's not been really pleasant. The other thing is that there is a proposal that the Kiwis are making to excuse, as we told you this before, this is not new news, but we've told you that the Kiwis are trying to get Long Beach Yacht Club Stars Plus Stripes Team USA excused from Colliery because they have no chance. There's a snowball's chance they cannot physically make it now because their boat is still not under constraints. There's only a tool, there's a mold, and there's no chance for them to get to Colliery with a boat and participate, as the protocol requires all the teams to do, to participate in all these America's Cup World Series events, or else they would be excluded under the protocol from the Challenger Selection Series next January, February in Auckland in 2021. And that is, unlike what we've discussed here with Richard Gladwell and a couple others, that is the one bit in the protocol where there is a penalty. You will be excluded if you don't participate. Now, you can argue about what does participate mean. Does that mean if you go to the skipper's meeting and attend, but then don't go out and race? I don't think so. And if they now excuse them, that is, the Kiwis excuse Long Beach from participating in Colliery by getting an agreement with Luna Rossa to that effect, I think there's going to be hell to pay. And it makes no sense to me at all that they could allow that. That would be so unfair to the other teams that have had to plan and are going to be distracted. The argument is, well, Long Beach Yacht Club's team is a one-boat team, so they ought to be excused. The others are two. Well, they're not. The others aren't two-boat teams until they splash a second boat next September or October. So how can you make that exception? Unless you say, well, that's our intention to have two boats. And so this is really a strange way to run a regatta. But they have to announce, whatever they're doing, they have to announce by the end of this month, the end of November, hence these meetings that are going on down there in Auckland now. I also hear, Julia.
Yes.
And I wouldn't stake my life or the ranch on this, but I hear, and we've told you before, that the Kiwis, for one reason or another, are really keen to keep Long Beach Yacht Club in the mix, even though they haven't apparently raised any money, they don't have a boat, they haven't been training, yada, yada, yada. And it is, I don't know what it is. Some of you on here, Richard Gladwell may know, but it obviously isn't going to say if he does. For some reason, and maybe it is related to funding from New Zealand for X many teams. Maybe it's just for the publicity of having 4 challenges instead of 3. Maybe there really is some legitimate hope that there will be a resurrection of this Long Beach team. I'd love to see 4 teams because, as I said before, we'd have two pairs going at it during the Challenger Selection Series. But I think what it really is that Long Beach Yacht Club's Stars Plus Stripes Team USA owes money to, always follow the money, as we said earlier in the show, owes money to Emirates Team New Zealand for that design package that they were sold, that they bought from ETNZ, the starter package, and they haven't paid for it. And I hear, I don't know if this is true or not, but I hear that ETNZ is saying, if you pull out Long Beach Yacht Club, we're going to sue you. And Stars Plus Stripes, we're going to sue you. And I've heard that before. Haven't said it on the show, I don't think. But that is what I'm being told is one of it is the only leverage. And now that starts to make sense. Hey guys, stay in, keep waving the flag, keep saying you got corporate sponsors, keep saying you're doing a television show. We'll talk about getting you excused from Colliery because obviously you Long Beach Yacht Club's team cannot make it. But if you do pull out, before we say you can pull out, and you don't pay us, particularly, we're going to sue you. Now, what they're going to sue them for, I don't know, but I breach a contract, presumably, because they did give them the design stuff. They did start building a tool, and then they pulled the plug back in whenever it was.
Yeah,
was it May or June? It was a long time ago when the then CEO, Justin Schaefer, pulled the plug. And then Mike Buckley came back in and tried to pull it all back together. Well, that's what I hear. And I'd be interested to see what Richard Gladwell or any of the rest of you have to say about all that I'll stop there before we do our next and final Bravo Zulu Sangmeister says nonsense.
Nonsense, yeah.
Okay, well, John's a member of Long Beach Yacht Club. We'll see what he says. And what about a new challenge of record if they defend? That's Margarita Marshall's asking, meaning if the Kiwis defend. Stingray's asking John Sangmeister by comment here. Please explain, John. Margarita Marshall, more PR for the event. Well, I don't know about that. How is there any money, though? So you guys are asking questions back and forth. Margarita Marshall saying money, any, and make more difficult for the challengers. Yeah, it's time they're talking about having an event up in in Portsmouth in the UK. Emirates Airlines is also the current name sponsor for the Spinnaker Tower in Portsmouth. Good point, Stingray. Thank you. Portsmouth has that big, beautiful Spinnaker Tower. Looks like a spinnaker. It's a little bit like the big hotel in Dubai that's shaped like a spinnaker and a mast and a spinnaker. Stingray, why are New Zealanders so amorously fond of their sheep paddocks? Julia, you have to laugh. It's Friday. We're going into next week. Even though we're going to work all week, we're going to have 2 shows, as we told you at the top of the show. The wind strengths were official, Richard. We're talking about the sheep in the paddock. Were official nowcast recordings. They looked light against the seaside. I don't think they looked light, Richard. I think you were spot on. John Emmett, normally a small field or enclosure where horses are kept or exercised. And of course, in Formula One, the paddock is where the cars are all kept in the paddock.
All the horses.
And the horses in the case of this. Okay. RH must have one sweet lens, very impressive from that distance. Yeah, again, those photos by Richard Gladwell of Emirates Team New Zealand, Te Ahe, were from 2.5, by his account, he told us it was 2.5 to 5 nautical miles away. Yeah. Take some video for us, Richard, or are you forbidden from doing so by ETNZ? Okay.
I'm impressed with that camera, though. It's just incredible. And Richard.
Well, Richard's a good photographer, and he writes well and at length. And, oh, look, I just switched off, so Julie's having her iced coffee. That doesn't have any Baileys in it or anything, does it?
Well, you never know.
Okay. Bravo Zulu, just a final wrap up here. We're an hour and a half in.
Yeah,
Time does fly, right? It's time to wrap this up. There's some good action going on down in New Zealand and in Australia. As we've advertised on here, Ben Remacher is the class manager for the 49er and the 49er FX and the NACRA 17. Their world championships are coming up here next month, early next month in Auckland. And they're having a tune-up regatta, practice regatta this next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think it's the 25th through the 27th, called the Oceania Cup. And then the following week is their world championships. And their president, Marcus Spillane, who's an Irish gentleman but lives in New York, senior serious official within World Sailing. Marcus is coming on the show a week from next Friday. Friday? No, a week from next Tuesday. On Tuesday, December 3rd. Marcus Spillane will be our guest live via Skype from Auckland, from this combined world championship of these 3 classes, of which he is president and of which Ben Remacher, who's also been on the show previously, and Ben is the class manager. Now, they are doing, and both of them have called me in the last few days to say that, yes, this live TV, thanks to I'll think of the TV network in a minute, in New Zealand.
Yeah, it's like Sail News.
No, it's, I'll think of it. Sky TV, and not related to British Sky TV and the Murdochs and all. This is New Zealand Sky TV. And they are televising, as far as we know, for the first time, the whole regatta, the whole World Championship regatta, live. So that's good news, and it's full marks to everybody involved that that's happening. Plus, they're doing the Oceania regatta, the test event, the pre-worlds, if you will, next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, also live, and they're going to stream it on the internet. The problem is, for the worlds, it's going to be behind a paywall. And, okay, they're trying this. At least they're live streaming it. At least they're televising it live in New Zealand. It'll be good for the sport. There'll be lots of good images. But they're doing it behind a paywall, which if they get 1,000 people to sign up, and you all can sign up now. It's $10 or €10 now to sign up. Go to the 49er or just Google 49er 49er FX or NACR 17, that class, those classes. If you sign up now, it's €10. If you wait until I think next week, it's €15. Regardless, next week's regatta, I'm told, is free to air. The 5 days of the Worlds will be televised live. As far as you know, the first time that's happened in our sport that a world championship of this ilk, an Olympic class, the whole thing's been televised. Unfortunately, it's behind a paywall. We'll see if that is a revenue model that works. I mean, what the hell? If it works, we can go to behind a paywall here, right?
Right.
We could charge all of you, and you'd gladly pay a subscription fee, right, rather than being voluntarily on becoming a patron. On we try to keep it. I'm teasing. Yeah. Okay, so that's what's happening. But in Melbourne, there's some more action, because then the lasers in January and the Finns in December. The Finn Gold Cup, which is their world championship, is in Melbourne the 13th through the 21st of December. And there's any number of other classes that are doing things over there in the Melbourne area as well in December and January, including, I think, the 49ers FX, 49er FX, and NACRAs. But the Finns, bravo Zulu to them, because they are soldiering on despite apparently, and it's not over till it's over, because there's a lot of action behind the scenes on whether the Finn will be retained for 2024. Don't take the decision that you may have heard or read about or we talked about here, the decision that was taken in Bermuda. That's not over. And I have heard again that until the IOC and the IOC Program Commission confirms the program for 2024, they're also having a meeting in December, but their final decision won't be until late 2020, after the Tokyo Olympics. And I told you that one hears, and I'll say it again, no one's told me I'm wrong. One hears, and it's been widely now repeated in the yachting media. Some have attributed it to us, and others have said, oh, there's a rumor. Well, one hears that the IOC may well take this offshore event and make it a demonstration event or an 11th medal, regardless, it's an 11th medal. Put the Finn back in, and then make that demonstration event, rather than mixed gender, a man and a woman, make it 2 women, which keeps the number of women's and men's medals the same. I may even give the women one more place than the men.
Terrible.
Huh?
Terrible.
I think it doesn't matter. I think what you do is try to have good events for the sport.
Yes.
So bravo Zulu to the Finn class. They've got their Gold Cup coming up here in December. They've got their then Gold Cup and U23 Worlds in Palma next May, the Finn World Masters in Port Zeelanda in the Netherlands, Nederlanden, and then their European Championship in Gdynia, Poland. Gdynia. The G is silent, I think. Gdynia, like Stade in Switzerland, or Danzig. But Gdynia, Poland. And then, of course, the Olympics, which may be their last hurrah in the Finn class in 2020, which is the last week of July, first week of August. Now, there's one more piece of Finn news, and that is that our Fozy, our friend of Sailing Illustrated, do you know who that is, Julia? That is Robert Deves, the PR man extraordinaire, who has been sending us pictures and videos and great press releases, and he gets this stuff out when the class... He has it pre-written. He then tunes it up. Same way Bernie Wilson writes up a story for the Associated Press. As soon as the game's over, he makes any final changes to it, pushes the button, and it's out. Same for Robert Deves. This guy is a hero in my book, and all of us that are covering the sport from this end appreciate people like, well, Robert's the new Finn class secretary.
That's great.
He's the new Finn class manager. I don't know what the title is, executive secretary or secretary general or tell me what. Congratulations to you, Robert Deves, and full marks to you. Okay. Before we leave you, and just remind you that we will be live next, God and Facebook and the internet willing, we'll be live again on Tuesday and Friday, despite this being Thanksgiving week next week. It's turned into a week-long holiday, right, Julia?
Seems that way here. Traffic's down. Automobile traffic is down, and air traffic is way up.
And this is travel day today, you said, not next Wednesday.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, let's see who else have comments or who've joined in the meantime. Well, we're just wrapping up here. Why is Dalton still trying to accommodate? Well, I think I answered that. That's what I hear. He wants the money from them for that design package that he sold them and for which they have not fully paid. And that I know confirmed from many different directions, lawyers and people who do and would know. They paid some of it, paid a good chunk of it. How is there any money to pay is what I think Margarita Marshall means with that comment. We'll see. Okay, Stingray. Daniel Gruen. Well, Tom, I told you that the Defender, it's actually Daniel, Defender/COR, Challenge of Record. The term of art is CORD, Cord, Challenge of Record Defender, would need to amend the protocol to let S&S in, didn't I? Yes, you did. And, of course, we've been saying that. Greg Morton, David Pippinger, Kenny Glidewell, Ken Glidewell, who is the Vice Commodore here at St. Francis Yacht Club, our good friend. Soon to be Commodore, if he continues, Julie, to play his cards right.
I know. And about, and
isn't the election the paperwork this week?
Yes, the election is the first week in December.
It is.
And the induction or whatever it is, it'll be the second week in January.
That's in January as always. But Ken is unopposed, and as well he should be. He's done a great job up the flags and on the board for many years. And will be a terrific Commodore. Stingray, I plan to pay to see the 49er Worlds. It's cheap entertainment, even if you catch only some of it. Yeah, I will too. We will have it. And I talked to them about doing a watch party, and they said, oh, would you do that? And I said, well, I would, but I don't think you want us to do it, because if we do a watch party, that's a whole bunch of people that you won't have paying money into your paywall to see it behind the paywall. Mm. So maybe we'll do something next week with the Oceania Regatta, which, as I said, runs Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So for our Tuesday show, which is their Wednesday, we may be on the air we will be on the air at the same time, and at least we can have a look in on that regatta, because I understand that is not to be behind the paywall. We'll see. But it's good that we keep saying this. Sometimes people do croutonic stuff, but at least they do it. Sometimes, New York Yacht Club does a good job with the Invitational Cup, Balboa Yacht Club with the Gov Cup. The Australians are every year raising their game for the youth, the Nespresso, the Harkin, and these events. And if you have any, we can name others that are live streamed or that are at least taped and then run later on or videoed. But people like live. That's why they like this show. Live is not easy, which is why there's no other shows like this. There's a lot of podcasts, which are audio. There's even some video podcasts, which are recorded and edited. But, live is hard. Sometimes you have a screw up like we did at the start of this show, and hopefully, rarely. But it's still, it's like the early days of live television. Hard, difficult. Stingray, God, I hate women running and ducking. Just kidding. I think he's talking about you, Julia. Dan Nolan, hello to you, Dan. Hamish Nickel, is the Finn Gold Cup going to be televised or at least filmed for later release? Last year's Finn Melbourne event in December was in superb windy weather, but no film, fingers crossed. I'm sure they will have video. They will do the World Sailing style brief video updates, which we grab and run. I love those. And I like what World Sailing did for the NACRA 15s that we ran at the head of this show. And we'll see. Live next Friday, Clark Chapin is saying on National Leftover Day. Yes, well, that's a nice...
Leftovers are a great part of Thanksgiving, though.
It's the most important part. I think it's even better than the meal itself, right? Plus, it's carnivore. We can eat that, Julia.
Indeed.
Well, you have to skip the stuffing if you're not going to be carbs. No carbs.
I don't know if you noticed that earlier, Hamish made the remark that you look thinner.
Really?
Yes.
That's the haircut, I'm sure. Okay, enough of that. Anything else? Don Lunabos, happy holidays. Happy holidays, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you for another in a line of truly impressive shows. Hat tip. Thank you, Stingray, Jim Bailey, and Taylor, Clark Chapin. Shouldn't you Photoshop the carbs? These are carbs. These are carbs, which are why they're croutonic, in part because they're carbs. Okay, who gave us slides and video? that our computer finally dealt with. I wonder what that was. There must have been some croutonism on there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you to all of you, and thank you to all of you who joined with us for this hour and 40-minute show. They are long. Julia, any last-minute advice?
Yes, don't forget us. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Indeed. Like, share, and subscribe. Julia, thank you again for your continuing support. Go over to Sailing Illustrated. What is that? That is Siri hearing one of us.
Yeah.
And we hope to see you next Tuesday. In the meantime, have a fabulous weekend. In the meantime, sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao. Bye.